I think Genesis contradicts itself. I know that's a huge statement, and honestly, I almost didn't want to bring it up. But I can't stop thinking about it. I've read these chapters over and over again, and something doesn't seem to fit. Genesis chapter 1 says God created mankind, male and female. He blesses them. He tells them to multiply, fill the earth, and rule over every living thing. Then I turn the page, and suddenly, Adam is standing alone. No Eve, no crowds of people, just one man in a garden. Then God creates Eve. I'm sorry, but those sound like two completely different stories. So, were Adam and Eve really the first humans? Or were there already people living outside the Garden of Eden?
Maria, you've just stumbled onto one of the oldest mysteries in Genesis. You're definitely not the first person to notice what looks like two creation accounts. For centuries, Jewish rabbis, Christian theologians, historians, and even skeptics have all asked this exact same question. Some say there's no mystery at all. Others believe Genesis is hiding something much bigger. And that's exactly what we're going to investigate today. But here's what surprised me the most. Genesis isn't the only ancient book telling this story. The Book of Jubilees has something to say. The Book of Adam and Eve has something to say. Ancient Jewish traditions have something to say. And when you put all of them together, you begin to understand why this question has fascinated people for thousands of years.
Because honestly, I don't think I'm imagining this. Listen to Genesis chapter 1. So God created mankind in his own image. Male and female he created them. Then God blesses them and says, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth." That sounds complete, almost like humanity has already begun. But then Genesis chapter 2 starts with Adam by himself. It's almost like someone pressed rewind. Why?
That's exactly the question. Is chapter 2 describing an entirely new creation? Or is it simply zooming in on the sixth day to give us more details about Adam and Eve? Those are two very different possibilities, and the answer changes how we read the entire book of Genesis.
Okay, let's investigate this like we always do. No assumptions, no jumping to conclusions. Let's just follow the evidence.
I like that. So let's begin with Genesis chapter 1. The chapter is beautifully structured. Day 1, light. Day 2, the sky. Day 3, land and vegetation. Day 4, the sun, moon, and stars. Day 5, birds and sea creatures. Then comes day 6, land animals, followed by mankind. Genesis says, "Then God said, 'Let us make mankind in our image, after our likeness.'" Notice something. The word used here is collective, humanity, mankind, male and female. The emphasis isn't on one individual, it's on humanity as a whole. Then God blesses them and commands them to fill the earth. By the end of chapter 1, creation appears complete. God looks at everything he has made and calls it very good. Then comes the seventh day of rest. Everything seems finished.
Exactly. That's why chapter 2 confuses me. Because chapter 1 feels like the perfect ending. Everything has been created. God rests. The story should be over. Instead, chapter 2 suddenly starts talking about Adam, as though we're beginning all over again.
And that's precisely why many readers pause here. But before deciding that Genesis is describing two separate creations, let's slow down. The first question we should ask is this: does chapter 2 actually say God is creating a second humanity? Or are we assuming that's what's happening? Because those aren't the same thing. Chapter 2 opens by saying, "These are the generations of the heavens and the earth when they were created." That phrase, "these are the generations," appears many times throughout Genesis. It's like a heading introducing the next section of the story. Instead of moving forward in time, the author often goes back and focuses on one specific family or one specific person. So right away, Genesis gives us a clue that chapter 2 may not be continuing the timeline. It may be narrowing the camera.
Like watching a movie? First, you see the entire city from above. Then suddenly the camera zooms into one house and one family. You're not watching a different day. You're just seeing more detail.
Exactly. That's the traditional understanding held by most Jewish and Christian scholars. Chapter 1 gives the panoramic view. Chapter 2 zooms in on the creation of Adam and Eve. But that still leaves a few unanswered questions, because some of the details don't seem to line up perfectly at first glance. And those details are exactly why this mystery refuses to disappear.
Like what? Because honestly, I've noticed something else. Chapter 1 says plants already exist. Chapter 2 starts talking about shrubs that hadn't yet appeared. Because there was no one to work the ground. That sounds different too.
Excellent observation, and you're not the only one who's noticed it. Some scholars explain those verses by saying they're referring to cultivated plants rather than all vegetation. Others think the Hebrew wording is more specific than most English translations make it sound. We'll come back to that later. But first, there's another clue that's even more important, one that almost everyone overlooks.
Okay, Genesis has raised the questions. Now let's open the Book of Jubilees. Does it describe two creations, or does it settle the mystery?
This is where things get fascinating. Remember, the Book of Jubilees is not part of the Bible for most Jewish and Christian traditions, but it is one of the oldest Jewish writings that expands on Genesis. It was treasured by the community that preserved the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it gives us a remarkable glimpse into how many ancient Jews understood these stories. And here's what's surprising. Jubilees doesn't present two separate creations at all. It treats Adam as the very first man, Eve as the very first woman, and Genesis chapter 2 as the detailed account of the same creation described in chapter 1. In fact, it expands the timeline, gives names, adds dates, and fills in many of the gaps left by Genesis, which raises a new question. If ancient Jewish readers didn't see two creations, why do so many modern readers think they do?
That's a great question, because if Genesis, Jubilees, and many ancient Jewish readers all point in the same direction, then maybe we're asking the wrong question. Maybe the mystery isn't, were there two creations? Maybe the real mystery is, why does Genesis tell the same event in two such different ways? And Jose, I have a feeling the book of Adam and Eve is about to make this investigation even more interesting. I'm still not completely convinced. I understand what Genesis and Jubilees seem to be saying, but there are still details that bother me. If Adam and Eve really were the first humans, why do so many people come away thinking otherwise? There has to be a reason.
There is, and it's because there are a handful of passages that have puzzled readers for centuries. Let's look at them one by one, not to prove a theory, but to understand why this debate exists in the first place.
The first thing I noticed is the order. Genesis chapter 1 says, plants, animals, then humanity. But when I read chapter 2, it almost sounds like Adam comes before everything else. Isn't that different?
At first glance, it certainly sounds that way. But here's where translation becomes important. The Hebrew language doesn't always work the same way English does. Some scholars argue that chapter 2 isn't describing everything being created for the first time. Instead, it's describing the condition of Eden before Adam was placed there. Others point out that some English translations make certain verbs sound like new creations, when the Hebrew can also describe things God had already made. So even here, the evidence isn't as simple as it first appears.
Okay, then explain this one. Genesis chapter 1 tells mankind, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth. But if only Adam and Eve existed, who was supposed to fill it? That sounds like God is speaking to an entire population.
Actually, He is, just not a large population. The command is being given to humanity as a whole, represented by its first man and first woman. Think about Noah. After the flood, God gives Noah and his family almost the exact same command: be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. No one argues that millions of people already existed then. The command is spoken to the founders of a future humanity.
That actually makes sense. I hadn't connected those two passages. Okay, let's open another ancient book. What does the Book of Adam and Eve say? Does it hint that other people already existed?
Surprisingly, no. Just like Jubilees, the Book of Adam and Eve treats Adam and Eve as the first human beings, but it focuses on something Genesis barely mentions: their life after leaving paradise, their grief, their repentance, their struggles, their hope that one day God would restore what had been lost. Instead of introducing another race of people, it expands the emotional story of the first family.
So neither Jubilees nor the Book of Adam and Eve supports the idea that there were already civilizations living outside Eden?
Correct. Neither ancient work presents two separate human creations. Both assume Adam and Eve are the beginning of humanity. But they also spend far more time describing what happened after Eden than Genesis does. That's why they're so fascinating to read alongside Scripture. Not because they replace Genesis, but because they show us how ancient Jewish and early Christian communities reflected on it.
Then why does this debate never seem to go away?
Because Genesis isn't written like a modern history textbook. It's ancient Hebrew narrative. Chapter 1 presents the grand picture of creation. Chapter 2 slows everything down and focuses on one relationship: God, humanity, and the garden. Modern readers often expect strict chronological storytelling. Ancient Hebrew writers often organize their stories by theme instead.
Wait, I think I finally noticed something. Chapter 1 is mostly about God creating the universe. Chapter 2 isn't trying to repeat creation, it's explaining how humanity's relationship with God began. The focus completely changes.
Exactly. The camera moves. Chapter 1 answers, who created everything? Chapter 2 answers, who were Adam and Eve? And why was Eden so important? Those are different questions, which is why the story is told differently.
So, after looking at Genesis, the Book of Jubilees, and the Book of Adam and Eve, where does the evidence point?
Here's where our investigation leads. Genesis itself never says there were two separate creations of humanity. The Book of Jubilees agrees. The Book of Adam and Eve agrees. Most ancient Jewish interpreters agreed as well. The real mystery isn't whether there were two creations. The real mystery is why Genesis tells one event from two completely different perspectives. One cosmic, one personal. One showing humanity's place in creation, the other showing humanity's relationship with its creator.
You know, I'm glad we investigated this instead of just assuming, because at first, I honestly thought Genesis was contradicting itself. But after looking at the evidence, I think the bigger surprise is how carefully these two chapters fit together. Not because they tell the exact same story, but because they tell the same event from two completely different angles.
And that's one of the reasons we love making these videos. Sometimes the greatest biblical mysteries aren't solved by reading less. They're solved by slowing down and reading more carefully. Next time, we're staying in Eden, because another mystery has been hiding in plain sight for thousands of years. If Adam and Eve committed the same act of disobedience as the serpent, why did God give each of them a completely different judgment? Until then, keep asking questions, keep searching the scriptures, and we'll see you in the next mystery.